All right, so today let's do a deep dive on something really cool, using ChatGPT to get ready for coding interviews.
It's wild. We're talking about prepping for those tough tech interviews with AI.
Yeah, like using artificial intelligence to practice for these things.
It's interesting to see AI tools go beyond just making code snippets. Now they can simulate a whole interview.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, it gives you a safe space to practice, get feedback, and work on your approach before you're actually sitting there in front of a recruiter.
That's amazing. So instead of just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best, you could actually, like run through algorithm questions, get feedback on your code, and even practice those "tell me about a time you failed" questions.
Exactly, all without someone staring at you.
That's amazing.
It can be really valuable. It's like having a personalized training ground for coding interviews.
I love it. So how do we even start? Do we just log on to ChatGPT and say, let's do a coding interview?
You could try, but it's better to be a bit more specific. You really want to treat it like a real interview, even though it's virtual. So you'd want to tell ChatGPT what you want to simulate, like, I'm prepping for a software engineer interview at Google. The more detail you give, the better.
Got it. So more detail is better. So I could say I want to get grilled on dynamic programming or ask for questions about tree data structures if I knew that was common for that company or role.
Exactly. You can get really specific. You can even say something about the technologies they use or whatever skills they want.
Okay, so I've set the scene. I've told ChatGPT I want to do a mock interview, let's say, for a front-end developer role that uses React. What happens next? Does it just start throwing lead code hard-level challenges at me?
Well, it can, but remember we're talking about practicing the whole interview.
Right, right.
So don't just go into silent mode and start coding away.
So I shouldn't treat it like just another coding challenge on one of those websites.
Right. Talk through what you're thinking, just like you would in a real interview.
That makes sense.
If you need to, ask clarifying questions too.
Okay, so it's not just about getting the right code. It's about how I think and how I solve the problem.
Yes. And don't forget about those behavioral questions we talked about.
Yeah, the dreaded behavioral questions like, tell me about a time you failed.
You can literally tell ChatGPT to throw those at you too.
Whoa, no way.
Yeah, you can practice your answers to tell me about a time you failed or what are your greatest strengths. ChatGPT can handle it.
That's really cool. So I can practice for the technical and behavioral parts of the interview. I like it.
Yeah.
But how does ChatGPT actually help me do better? Like, it's one thing to answer a question, but how do I know if I'm doing a good job?
That's where the cool stuff comes in. ChatGPT can actually give you feedback and suggestions.
Oh, really? I didn't realize it could do that.
Yeah, it's not just about giving answers. It can look at what you did and offer advice.
That's awesome.
So say you're doing a coding question and you write some code. Don't just assume it's perfect. Ask ChatGPT to critique it for you.
So instead of just, is this right? I could be like, can you analyze this and tell me if it's efficient? Like, are there ways to make it better?
Exactly. You can even ask ChatGPT if it knows a better way to do it, like a more elegant solution that maybe you didn't think of.
Oh, that's cool. It's like having a senior dev looking over your shoulder.
Right. But a lot less awkward when they think your code is bad.
Yeah, way less awkward.
And remember we talked about behavioral questions. You can actually ask ChatGPT to give you feedback on those too.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, like if you're answering, tell me about a time you failed, you can see if your story was good or if you highlighted the right things. ChatGPT can give you feedback on those softer skills.
Wow. That's amazing. You can do a lot with this. It makes me wonder, though, it's not like ChatGPT is the be-all and end-all of interview prep, right?
You're totally right. It's important to remember that a real person is going to be doing the interview.
Exactly, yeah.
ChatGPT is awesome. It's a great tool, but it has its limitations.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You have to be aware of those. Don't fall into the trap of thinking ChatGPT is all you need.
What are some of those ChatGPT traps that we should look out for?
Well, one thing is ChatGPT doesn't have any time limits. You can stay up all night working on your answers.
Right.
But in a real interview, you're going to have a limited amount of time.
Oh, that's a good point. You could get really caught up in overthinking everything if you're not careful.
Exactly. So it's important to get good at working under pressure, know when it's time to move on from a tough question, and how to manage your time.
It's like practicing your golf swing at the driving range versus playing a full round on an actual course, right?
That's a great way to put it. You need both to really get good.
And there's just something about that face-to-face interaction.
Totally.
Like making a connection with the interviewer, picking up on social cues, just being comfortable and confident, No matter how much you practice with ChatGPT, you can't get that.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, those soft skills are just as important.
For sure.
You could be the best coder in the world, but if you can't talk to people or work well with others, that's not going to get you very far.
So it sounds like ChatGPT can be a great way to really build up a solid foundation, even if it can't totally replace those real-life conversations.
For sure. Think of it like this. ChatGPT can help you master the basics
Okay, yeah,
so that when you go into the interview, you aren't worried about easy things. You've already got those down.
I see.
Then you can focus on showcasing your unique skills and experience.
That makes sense. So let's say someone's listening to us and they're like, all right, I'm sold. I want to make ChatGPT my new interview coach. What would be your advice for getting started?
I'd say treat it kind of like training for a marathon.
Yeah,
You wouldn't go out and try to run 26 miles on day one, right?
right. That's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. So with ChatGPT, you want to start small. Start with smaller coding challenges. Just get comfortable with the whole process.
Okay, so start small, get comfortable. What's next?
Then you can gradually start upping the difficulty. Remember we were talking about how you can tailor ChatGPT to focus on specific roles or companies?
Yeah, that was so cool.
You can use that to your advantage. Say you really want to work at, I don't know, Amazon, and you know they love algorithm questions.
Yeah,
You can have ChatGPT focus on just those types of problems.
that's like having a custom-made interview prep course.
Right.
It's probably way cheaper than those boot camps people keep talking about.
Exactly. And the best part, ChatGPT is there 24/7. You can practice whenever you have time at your own pace.
No more trying to cram in mock interviews late at night.
I love it.
It's wild how much things are changing, even just compared to a few years ago.
I know, it's really remarkable, but it shows how important it is to be willing to adapt and try new technologies.
Couldn't agree more. Well, we're about out of time for today's deep dive, but if you're out there prepping for a coding interview or just interested in AI, give ChatGPT a try. You might be surprised.
Who knows? You might even have some fun.
That's all the time we have for today. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive into the latest in tech.